For as long as I can remember, I have been obsessed with the art of old school animation. I have a Kem Weber desk tattoo. Google that if you don't know what it is. I started painting animation cells back in high school, like these and some of my earlier stuff, and I loved it so much I actually started doing it again as an adult, and this is one of the ones that I did not too long ago. Jessica Rabbit, and porting a little bit of mixed media there for that dress. It just was a really cool piece. And actually, if you check out some of my earlier videos here on TikTok, I actually did one of Lady and the Tramp just to kind of show the process. And it was the first video I'd done that actually made some kind of serious noise that people really seemed to enjoy it. And I really love doing this. And I have a very good friend of mine who was having a very big birthday not too long ago. And I wanted to make him an art installation piece that was based on old school animation because he's a big fan of those things. And unlike those other animation cells you saw, I'm actually going to paint a background on this one. So I did all black to start with. He loves film noir, and I wanted to do a background that was very kind of dark in the city, 1940s kind of thing, and bringing in some elements of black and white, and I'm using acrylic paint on this, and just to add just this kind of film noir look to it, and not to get too busy, because the background is not really the focus here, and we're adding just very few elements of color, and I love those paintings that people do where it's like a rainy cityscape, and I wanted to kind of invoke that. One of the things my friend really loves is ice cream sandwiches, so I wanted to do like a neon sign in the city for ice cream sandwiches, and that's what I'm doing here. And, you know, for things like this, realistic painting is not my forte. However, hand lettering, that I can do. I think we've established at this point. So I love doing this kind of dry paint effect with a little bit of highlight to add that neon look to it. And I really, really love that. And I just think it adds a nice touch. And this is just about headed where we want it to go, but we're going to add a few more elements just to give it some more depth. Another thing that my friend is absolutely obsessed with is Disney, and his favorite character of all time is Stitch. And I have drawn probably about 1,000,000 Stitches for my buddy over the years. But this one, I wanted to add Stitch in just a little bit more of a sneakier way. So what I decided to do was take that back sign and actually write the Japanese characters that spell out the word Stitch, because he did go to Japan and he loves Stitch. So my friend also loves robots and old detectives, so that's my friend. I basically drew a picture of him as an old detective robot. It's a long story. My friend is really weird. And I'm using that glass you saw earlier from those picture frames. I actually bought those at the dollar store because I'm going to do this cell on glass. And what I'm using to do the outline here from my original illustration in Procreate is I'm using an oil-based fine tip Sharpie. You can't use a regular Sharpie on glass. They just won't have the same look. It won't look as opaque and as solid, and the line work will start to disappear after time. But these oil ones, they're permanent and they work really, really well. Obviously, it's glass, so you have to wear gloves so you don't get smears all over it. But here we go, and we're going to be painting on the back side of it once we get that image dialed in. And I'm going to be using acrylic paint on here, and it's kind of weird the way you have to work when you're painting either on a cell or really in a window if you're painting backwards, because you have to kind of lay down the highlights first and then come back and lay down the basic colors. So you kind of have to think backwards, which as someone who is dyslexic, that actually really works for me. But you add your lighter highlights first, and then you'll come in and add your darker colors. And his eyes are glowing red because he's a robot. And you can see by looking at the other side of it that this is the look we want. It's really getting to that effect, but we're gonna turn it back over and get back to the other elements in the picture. He loves Transformers, particularly Megatron, so he's holding the old school Megatron as a gun. And I did the silver highlights first and the white highlights, and now I'm coming back in and adding black. And same thing with the facial features. You want to add the detail and then come back in and add the base color. It can get a little confusing, so take your time and keep looking at the other side as you need to. But the best part of that is that with each layer of paint that you lay down, you'll get that more opaque look. I laid down some bolts with some Gorilla Glue because I wanted the glass to only take up a certain portion of the background painting. I wanted this to be like an art installation piece. And so I used the heaviest books I own to basically set it with Gorilla Glue, and I left it overnight. And I got the look I wanted. We have our painting on glass that is just raised off the background with those metal elements. And as you can see, it has all the look I want. And that border that goes off, I just thought it was really cool. And I added some hooks on the back so he could hang it. And he actually really loved this piece. And I think I do too. I think I need to paint more cells. Okay, cool.